won't have to cry no more.
The family is the first government.
Yep.
The family is the first government. If you and I are married, we have 2 children. Okay? And people looking at our family see that whatever you say, I do. And you do whatever you want to do. The children see it, the neighbors see it, the friends see it. And it's clear to everyone, the head of this family is you. We could also have a structure where the head of the family is me. Now, what is it that makes you or me the head of a family? If we were in a society where justice prevailed, then the head of the family will be the one who serves the family most. It's not about who's male, who's female.
say, I went to see the tech canoe. What they're talking about, yeah? The Egyptians, they used to word that we use for obelisk is a Greek word. So the Egyptian word is tekkenu. Okay, everybody say after me, tekkenu.
Tekkenu.
There you go, you've learned a new word today. Right, now, this is possibly one of the oldest monuments, even it could be the oldest monument in London. How old is London? Somebody must know how old London is, we all live here. When were the Romans here? Roughly. Before 10, long before 10. About 2,000 years ago? So the Romans called London, Londinium. That's right, so you did know. So, you see, they know these stuff. So, basically, Londinium was named Londinium about 2,000 years ago. How old is this monument? Does anyone know? Did anyone get how old this monument is? How old? Come down a bit. 3,500 years old. If London is 2,000, this is 3,500, which is the oldest? Exactly. So how did this get here? Yeah, see? I can read mine. Okay, this got here, basically, Britain and France were fighting a war in Egypt. Now, they were fighting this war, and somehow Britain won. Who knows why they're fighting a war in Egypt, Britain and France? No, it's not a question. Why would you be fighting in someone else's? Yeah, exactly. Why would you be fighting in someone else's country? Do you know what I mean? There's always war going on over other people's countries. So eventually the British won against the French. So the person who was in charge of Egypt at the time, whose name was Muhammad Ali. Has anyone ever heard that name before? His name was Muhammad Ali. He said, oh, I'm so grateful for the British, I'm going to give you a gift. So he gave them this. Now, you're looking at this thinking, wow, that's nice, isn't it? The British looked at it and thought, what are we going to do with that? They left it in Egypt for 70 years. They did not touch it. Yeah? A couple of reasons why they weren't crazy about it, for one. And two, it was very expensive to actually be able to get it into London from Cairo. It's one complete piece of granite. And granite is one of the hardest stone materials in the world. So they're thinking, how the heck are we going to get it here? So they built a massive, massive boat. Absolutely huge. And they managed to get it onto the boat. However, the journey from Egypt to here was fraught with danger. And those 6 men that you see mentioned up there, inscribed with all their names, yeah, they were all drowned. But somehow they survived. Yeah, amazing. Amazing that this survived. It weighed 240 tons. How the heck does that survive with 6 men drowned? So it arrives, and now it's here. The MPs think, oh, that's nice, we'll have the Act of Parliament. Basically, Parliament, the people, this beautiful embankment which runs all the way down that way and all the way down that way, had just been built, 1878. And House of the Parliament said, oh, we'll have it outside the House of Parliament. The people of London said, no, you didn't pay for it. So this man paid for it, this man called Williams Erasmus Smith, he paid for it. They decided to have it here as a monument to the embankment only. So they put it up here. Now all this black stuff that you see helping to support it was designed by a guy called George Bullamy. And George Bullamy put all the way along the embankment lots of this black stuff. Now this black stuff was actually made from the guns of captured French ships. So every time they captured a French ship, they would melt down the guns and they would make something out of it. So as you go along, you will see here you've got fishes on this side, and further down you get fishes, you get frogs, you get ducks, all the way along the embankment, because it's a very long embankment. So they've designed it all the way up in different things. So now, before they put this up though, they decided they were going to do something very strange. Inside here are 2 huge pots, and it's filled with stuff that was around the time that they were building this to put it up. So inside you'll find 12 pictures of the most beautiful women in London at the time. I mean, you know, you'll find things like bus timetables, train timetables, newspaper cuttings, all sorts of things that were around, all hidden in here. Now, at the same time, if you look, you'll see that chunks of it are missing. Yeah? Now, these chunks came out during the World Wars. And in the First World War, this was used by the Germans as a guide. Because this area, even though we see it built up now, it wasn't built up then. So this was one of the tallest things in the area. But they also knew, over that side, all government buildings were there. So they knew if they dropped a bomb around here, they were more likely to hit one of the government buildings. Yeah? And when I was doing this tour one day, a man came up to me and said, "Oh, I heard what you just said." He said, "And you're right." He said, "Here's a picture." And he showed me a picture of this area completely smashed to bits, streets totally destroyed. I asked him if I could have it, he said no. So basically, now when George was designing this, he also designed two very important Sphinx. That's a horrible word to say to me. Sphinx. Yeah? And if you see the Sphinx, they're looking the wrong way. When you're guarding, they are supposed to be guarding this, you should be looking the other way. Yeah? But someone did point out that that one might be looking that way and that one might be looking that way. But to be honest, I think you'll find that they're looking the wrong way. And that's because Queen Victoria wanted them to be looking at the monument. So, when I talked to you about the First World War, when you were coming up, did anyone notice the big holes that are missing in this particular one here? Yeah? You could put your hand in, they're so big. Because during the war, when they dropped all the bombs, it destroyed parts of these. So as you go by, you will see that you can put your hand in. And one time I came and someone had put loads of flowers in them, it looked great. So as you're going back this way, have a look and you will see, yeah. Now the inscription written on the front of the Sphinx says, "To the great God Tutmosis." Moses, has anyone ever heard of Tutmosis? Yeah, Egyptian god. And I'm sure certain persons within this team would be able to tell you a lot more about them than I could. Yeah? Now, good morning. It's alright, we're nearly finished. So, yeah, so when you walk along, also check out the benches that you may not have noticed what's on them as you're walking. A lot of them had people sleeping on this walk. But check them out as you go and see what George Woolamy has actually put on them. It's quite fascinating to think that we're walking around London and there are people who know our history more than we do. Yeah. So you will find something like this. Yeah. It's a monument to the sun god Ra in Egypt. Obviously not here, but that's what it would have been originally. Yeah. So take your pictures, read, have a look, and we've got about 10 minutes to get to Nelson. Yeah, so take some pictures and enjoy the afternoon. All right, people?
So there's new members, so we take one more big picture, just to make sure that some people are early.
Oh, just to say, the lions. Does anyone see the lions? The green lions?
Yeah.
Yeah. That lion's mouth, if the water ever reaches here, yeah, they said that London can actually start flooding. Yeah. Now I've been on a tour here where I started here and we couldn't actually stand here because the River Thames completely was right across. Yeah. So we had to stand up there to talk. So you have to be careful sometimes when you come here. The Thames is actually higher than you realise. Yeah. But then the tide goes out and you can go onto the beaches. That side have got beaches, if you notice. Yeah. That's the South Bank. Okay. I think I've done. I didn't want to stay here all night, all day, but I thought I'd just give you a short little history of this monument.
Okay, so one more picture and then we start making.
Okay, right.
And 5, 6, and then you stop.
Here we go. Yes. You missed the first one.
Come on, Terry, go out the back door. You can drown everybody else.
That's because he's so tall.
Yeah, we're all family here, but not too much.
The little one's in. Yeah, I know it. Yeah. The Look what you at the front.
You should ask that guy to take a picture of you coming as well. What?
I want to see what you mean.
Red, you come in, bro.
Fred, I'm just going to come out and take a picture with everybody.
Come on.
And I'm just going to take a picture. Stay still, people. Grab people, smile. Pretend it's a good time. What I'm going to say is, if everyone does something, like at lunch, it looks really nice.
Back. Yes, Auntie, Sister Avril. Queen Avrils in the house.
Oh, not about Queen, but thank you.
Greetings.
Greetings, everybody. Hi.
The house once again.
Nice to see you again.
Yep. And I know you're going to give us something beautiful once again, as you gave us yesterday. And the public can't wait to see what kind of information you're going to give them, as this is Black History Weekender. And I'm asking people dig deep and start to donate, because this is for the DLA, the Dr. Llaila Afrika International Exchange Program for our youth from 15 to 21. And we'll be doing a Man's Rites of Passage next year to Congo. So we're asking for people to donate so that we can make this a big phenomenon for our children, because it's a long term, so that the children can able to have an exchange program amongst themselves from the Caribbean to the USA to the UK to through across Europe into Africa and South America, and then having a big rites of passage when they get a bit older in one of the African continents, as we are speaking to most of all the African kings, and they are willing to open up their doors for people to come in and doing their rites of passage. But right now we have the one and only Avril Walks in the house.
One day, Terry, you'll get it right. Honestly, I have been trying to teach Terry for years. It's Avril Nanton, Avrils Walks and Talks.
Okay, Avrils Walks and Talks.
Thank you. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you very much, Selena. That was fantastic. And Michael and Tony and Robin and all the people that just been on this today. My name is Avril Nanton. I'm the director of Avrils Walks and Talks. I'm a professionally qualified tour guide around London. And what I do is I take people around London to show them the Black history of London, things that they never knew existed. And one of my favorite things to talk about are the statues that there are in London that represent us. Now, I also have a walk coming up, before I forget, that links in with this particular talk that we're going to see today. And that's on the 5th of September at 11 o'clock. You can go to my website, www.avrilswalksandtalks.co.uk, and I'll give the information at the end of this presentation. But you can get tickets, and you can come with me and I can show you where some of these statues are. Now today, I'd suggest that you get yourself a pen and paper to ensure that you can take down the details of the places where some of these statues are. And you can do your own tour if you can't do my tour. But over the years, I've found that there are something like 30 different statues, Black statues in London alone. They're not all nice. Some of them are quite awful. There's memorial buildings included in that. There's bust statues, etc., etc. So effectively, there are statues and memorials that represent us that people don't even know about. And all of the ones I'm going to show you are available to the general public, and they are free to see. So you can go and see them anytime you feel like. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with one of the newest statues, or some of the newest statues, so you can see what there is out there. These are some of the statues and monuments and plaques and all sorts of things that we found around. But this guy is a new guy on the block called Thomas J. Price. And this statue here of this young man with his mobile phone. And if you look, there are 3 pictures, and this is Thomas J. Price himself, these 2. This statue is called Network, and its current home is at the White Collar Factory in City Road by Old Street. Previously, it was based at the Olympic Park. When they unveiled it originally, it was at the Olympic Park. As I said, it's a statue of a young man on his mobile phone, which is very relevant today. And his latest creation is called Reaching Out, which is also known as Every Woman. And that can be found on 3 Mill Island in Stratford. Now, these statues, particularly those 2, were part of a project called The Line, which is a dedicated art walk, which follows from the Meridian Line right through from the O2 through to the Olympic Park. So it's quite a long distance, and all the way along you will see art of some sort, not necessarily black art, just different types of art. All the artists have given their works and put them along this line. It's quite interesting what there is. Now, Thomas J. Price himself is of Jamaican heritage, and he was born in 1981. And as I said, the first male statue I showed you was unveiled in East London on the Olympic Park in 2014. And the White Collar Factory version, I suppose, was unveiled in 2015. And this young lady who's on her mobile phone was actually unveiled 2 weeks ago on the 5th of August in 2020. Both figures are made of bronze. Both are about 9 feet or 2.7 meters high. Now, if you look on the right-hand side, there's some heads that Thomas did a couple of years ago, which were placed in Regent's Park. Very popular, really lovely. They're no longer there, unfortunately, but it just gives you an example of his work. Now, when they were installing the statue in the White Collar Factory, they made a little video, and here's the video. I hope you can hear it. I hope you can hear it. Can you hear it, Terry?
Yeah, we can hear it.
Okay.
I can hear it.
Okay. It's just music. There's no talking. Okay, now I will say that I've been to see that statue, and the disappointing thing about it is there's absolutely no information as to what it is, why it's there, who made it when you go to see it. I searched high and low to see if I could find any information, because I knew what it was, but I would imagine most people who who see it, come across it, don't know what it is. So if you do go and see it, it is there, and that's exactly what it is. It's just a representation of young men on their mobile phones, and the female can be seen on 3 Mill Island in Stratford. Okay, so let's move on to another more well-known person. Okay, I'm sure many of you have heard of Mary Seacole, and she was born in 1805 and she died in 1881. Now, her father was a Scottish soldier and her mother was a free black Jamaican doctress. And she learned about herbal medicines from her mother, which a lot of people do. That's where they get their knowledge from. And in 1854, she applied to come to England as a nurse, but she was refused by Florence Nightingale. Now, Nightingale saw her as a crank nurse, not to be taken seriously, and she ignored her request to provide help for soldiers on the Crimean War front. She also didn't like the fact that this black nurse was trying to join her League of Nurses. She didn't see any benefit in having an untrained nurse, particularly a black one, in her group. She was trying to train all her nurses to a certain standard, and she didn't feel that Mary had reached that standard. Now, this made Mary make a momentous decision. She decided to travel to the Crimean War front herself. And now Crimea is on the border of what was then part of the Ottoman Empire, and which is today Russia and Turkey. And if you know any recent history, you may know that Russia recently invaded Crimea, once again trying to take it back to rule. Now, imagine going from the Caribbean or from London to those parts of the world where you don't speak any languages or any of those languages. Now, Mary became a freelance nurse, and she set up what she called a hotel. And the top of the screen shows a drawing of the hotel, or how it was laid out. She nursed the soldiers at the front until the war was over. But by the time she returned to England, because she'd spent so much money, building this hotel, getting all the goods in to sell to the soldiers, and getting all the herbs and spices in, she was ill, but she was also penniless, and she owed a lot of money to various people. Now, when some of the soldiers she'd nursed heard about it, they had a fundraising festival for her, which attracted thousands of people, including many VIPs. They raised enough money to help her out, so that was really good. It helped her a lot. Over the years, she traveled back and forth to Jamaica, and she died in Paddington in 1881. She became famous for being at the front when Florence Nightingale had refused to go to the front. Nightingale remained far away from the fighting, so the soldiers usually saw Mary Seacole first. They called her Mama Seacole, or Mother Seacole. Seacole and Nightingale had big rivalry, and even now there's anger over the fact that Seacole's statue is bigger than Florence Nightingale's and is in a more prominent position. Seacole was voted into first place in an online poll of 100 Great Black Britons in 2004, and her portrait was used in 2005 for first-class stamps showing important Britons. Now, just to show you, this is the camp here, so you can see, get an idea as to how it was laid out, and this is one of the internal scenes. Here you've got Mary Seacole herself. This is a map of the Crimea area. As you can see, it's in Russia, the Black Sea. This is the stamp which was printed of her. And this statue here is a statue we'll talk about later. But in the meantime, the statue, the most current statue of Mary Seacole, the most well-known statue of Mary Seacole, is this one, which is situated outside St. Thomas's Hospital. I hope you've got your notes. Hope you're making notes. You can go and visit this anytime outside St. Thomas's Hospital. The sculptor of the statue is a man called Martin Jennings, and it was unveiled on Thursday, the 30th of June, 2016. Now, the disc behind the statue and the figure itself is made from bronze. The plinth is made of Cumbrian black slate, concrete, and Portland stone. So it's a really well-made structure. It's 16 feet high, 4.9 meters if you prefer it that way, and it cost £1 million. Now, the money was raised by the Mary Seacole Memorial Statue Appeal, and many of you will know of a lady called Elizabeth Aninonwu, who was the focus, the driver of that fund. Before I forget, in 1857, Mary Seacole wrote a book called The Wonderful Adventures of Mrs. Seacole in Many Lands. So I have a short video that shows something about Mary Seacole's life.
But the top of the list was a woman who many people would never heard of.
Now, who's the greatest black Briton of them all? And with us today is Mary Seacole.
Mary Seacole was a Jamaican woman who nursed injured and wounded soldiers during the Crimean War back in the middle of the 19th century. She's buried here in Kensal Green in London, and until she won that poll back in 2004, this was one of the only memorials to her. Since the Pope brought her back into British consciousness, Mary Seacole has been added to the national curriculum. celebrated with a blue plaque on her former home in London, and now a statue is being erected in her honour. But the story of Mary Seacole has also unleashed conflict and controversy. Because Mary Seacole made her name in the Crimean War, she has, perhaps inevitably, been compared to Florence Nightingale. And there are those today who claim that her contribution wasn't significant enough to merit a place in our history books. So what is the truth about Mary Seacole? Historian Helen Rappaport has been researching Seacole's work in the Crimea at the Wellcome Library in London.
Well, she set up as a general store, but more importantly, she also ran a kind of informal clinic. So anyone who felt unwell could go and get a dose of medicine for their stomach abscess or have a wound stitched or even a bullet removed. She could certainly do those things.
Was she a qualified nurse?
Well, of course not, because it was Florence Nightingale who instituted training for nurses after the Crimean War. She was a nurse in the kind of more broad sense of a caregiver, someone who mopped the fevered brow.
We know about Mary Seacole's impact in the Crimea because British soldiers wrote about her in their journals and letters home.
This is from the Journal of William Castle, a British medical officer, who says her fame as a doctress for cholera and diarrhea are spread all over the camp. And the extraordinary thing we find with Mary Seacole in the Crimea is if there's one person everyone knew was Mary Seacole.
Sorry.
Remedies from the Caribbean, learned at her mother's knee.
Great, thank you. Now this actually was a key ingredient that Mary used, cinnamon bark. She would grind it, pound it with a pestle and mortar, boil it up with water and sweeten it then with guava jelly or something like that. The other things she used were fruits like guava and pomegranate. So it really was these liquids that were her fundamental treatment for things like dysentery and enteric disease.
Seacole's remedies were famed for their effectiveness, but over the years she was gradually forgotten.
When most people think of the Crimean War, they think of Florence Nightingale, a figure who's far more famous.
Well, no one can take away from the extraordinary reputation of Florence Nightingale. She was a true pioneer. They were two very different women. Mary was her own woman with her own unique Jamaican methods.
Mary was forgotten for almost a century. Now, there's many black figures in British history who were written out of our national story. Do you think race played a part in Mary's disappearance?
Well, it must have played some part, but I don't see it as a really active forgetting. I think the huge problem with Mary is we have no paper trail, so it was an oral history. Once Mary died, it was more a forgetting than, I think, an active, racist, deliberate desire to eradicate her from history.
Mary Seacole is the first named black woman to be honoured with a statue in Britain. She may still be compared to Florence Nightingale, but her place in British history now seems assured.
I think we should remember Mary Seacole in her own right and for her own achievements. Both she and Florence Nightingale made unique contributions, but there's plenty of room in our historic memory of the Crimean War for both of them.
And the statue of Mary will be unveiled this Thursday.
Of course, that's an old video, so the statue has already been unveiled, so you can go and see it outside St Thomas's Hospital. So let's move on to my favourite statue, which is called the Bronze Woman. Now, those of you who live in Brixton may have seen this. This statue was unveiled in 2008. It was the brainchild of Guyanese poet Cecile Nobrega, who wrote a poem called Bronze Woman, and it marks the struggles faced by Caribbean women as well as their contribution to society. And it took 10 years of planning, fundraising and determination by Cecile and other groups and individuals to raise the funds to get the statue up. Now, Cecile came to London in 1969 and she was 89 when the statue was unveiled in 2008. Unfortunately, she died in 2013. As I say, the statue itself is in Stockwell Memorial Gardens in South London, near to Stockwell Tube Station. Now, a little bit of information about the artist. The artist is on the right-hand side. This is him here. His name is Ian Walters. Now, Ian Walters is going to pop up quite a lot today because Ian Walters is quite famous in the statue world for doing black statues. And he died before he could actually complete this particular statue. And it was one of his students, Alex Barbette, who was a final year student, who actually finished the sculpture. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It's made of bronze and it's 10 feet high, and I don't know what that is in meters. So those of you who do can convert. But effectively, Cecile, as you can see there, she looks very proud of the statue. And not many statues have a mother and baby. This is the only one that I know of with a Caribbean flavor. Now, there's a short video that shows the unveiling.
In the trust that it will inspire future generations, as I know it will inspire you today. So I call upon Anissa Jane,
You may know some of these people.
I call upon Sunita Allain. I call upon Brenda King. I call upon Doreen Lawrence. I call upon Jessica Huntley. I call upon Sybil Phoenix. I call upon Baroness Howells. I call upon Cecile. And finally, I call upon Tanisha Haynes. Cecile's contribution to her community will live on in the statue she has caused to happen, and I offer my heartfelt thanks to her for that. As the Bronze woman holds up her child to the future, I commend Cecile to the future, a light, an inspiration, and an every woman.
Okay, as I said, those of you who live in Stockwell or Brixton should be able to see that and probably gone past it thousands of times and never realised what it was. But it's a very important statue. So now we come to a man called Yinka Shonibare. I have met Yinka quite a few times, and his name is pronounced Yinka Shonibare. But I'm so used to saying Yinka Shonibare. Don't be surprised if I forget. Now, Yinka Shonibare, MBE, was born in London in 1962, and he moved to Lagos, Nigeria, at the age of 3 to continue his studies, and he went to school in Lagos. However, he returned to London to study fine art at university, and he currently lives in and works in the East End of London. He has exhibited at leading museums worldwide, and he is the first Black and disabled artist to be commissioned to make a work for the 4th plinth in Trafalgar Square. Now, the ship in a bottle, which is this here, represents Nelson's victory, which Shonibare says is a celebration of Britain's multicultural society. He says that after Nelson's victory at the Battle of Trafalgar, the seas were freed for the British to build their empire. Subsequently, individuals and families from countries within that empire came to live in Britain, which is true. In 1980, Shonibari contracted transverse myelitis, which is an inflammation across the spinal cord. He was just 18 at the time. This resulted in a long-term physical disability where one side of his body is paralyzed. Now, he was voted one of the 100 most powerful Black people in this country, and he also has works in other parts of London and the rest of the world. Now, this ship in a bottle here, you can see, and let me give you a little bit of information about it. Obviously, the sculpture is Yinka Shonibare. It was unveiled in May 2010 on the 4th plinth in Trafalgar Square. You can currently see it at the Greenwich National Maritime Museum, which is where I'm standing underneath the statue, the monument, whatever you want to call it. And as you can see here is a picture of people inside the bottle putting the ship together. This bottle is absolutely massive, and you could actually have several people standing in the cork. It's that big. Now, the ship itself is made of fiberglass, acrylic, wood, steel, brass, resin, linen, and rigging. And the most interesting thing is that the sails are made of African Dutch wax cloth. Now, the material used for the sails are things that are materials that Yinka himself goes to Brixton Market to buy, and he will actually design his own materials to fit in with the theme. So this particular one was a ship theme, so you will see that there's an anchor, say, on the material. Now, Yinka, as I said, has works all over London. And a few years ago, when the Royal Academy wanted to hide the fact that they were having works done on their building, they used Yinka's work to surround the building, and this is what it looks like. This was in London, yeah, a few years ago at the Royal Academy in Piccadilly. If you missed it, missed an amazing feat. It was fantastic. Now, some of his other work include these two. In Covent Garden for 5 years, on the side of the English National Opera, this globe head ballerina, as you can see, there's a street. So this is a side-on view. The globe head ballerina was on the building, and she would tip and dance and go around and do all kinds of things. And she moved about. It was absolutely amazing, really fantastic. A lot of people missed it because of where it was placed. I could never understand why they placed it so high up, but there you go. And then here on the left, in Wilcox Place and Howick Place in Victoria, you find one of his famous flags. He has flags all over the world. He's got them in York, he's got them in Germany, he's got them in America, and they are absolutely brilliant. They look as though they're waving in the wind, but they're not. They're actually made of metal, but the way it's been designed, they look as though they're waving about in the wind. So that's you. Now we've got a short video again of Yinka. This one's a bit quiet, this video, so you may have to really listen.
Theatricality is central to my work. The piece is called Nelson's Ship in a Bottle. Nelson won the Battle of Trafalgar against Napoleon. And so I put the ship, HMS Victory, into a large bottle. And the sails on the ship are African textiles I usually work with in my work. The piece has been at Trafalgar Square for just over a year now. When I came to Britain, I learned that being black meant that you were supposed to be somewhat inferior. I didn't quite understand that concept at all. But of course, now I understand it better in the context of colonialism and slavery. My work is a way of somehow thinking about that and thinking why has Africa been so held back? And also, why are the people of African origin, in Europe and America, why do they have such a raw deal? It's a way of actually doing something magical, that's a work of art, but that's also talking about history as well. I want to represent what Britain is like today and the diversity within Britain, and then using, Nelson as a kind of a symbol, if you like. I was delighted, of course, when I was approached by the Maritime Museum. There couldn't be a better venue for that piece. At the end of the day, it's playful art that hopefully, will make people smile. Also, people tend to wonder about how the ship, got into the bottle, which is also another playful thing, because I won't tell anyone, how that was done.
So you'll just have to work it out for yourself, how he got that ship into the bottle. So let's move on. Come on. Right. Thank you. Now, we have a statue which most people don't know about, as in they don't even know it exists. And unfortunately, I have to give you the bad news, it's gone. But this is a bust statue of the Emperor Haile Selassie. And it was in Canizaro Park in Wimbledon. And I'll just give you a short history. Emperor Haile Selassie was born on the 23rd of July, 1892, and he died on the 27th of August, 1975. Now, in the 1930s, he fought against the Italian invasion of Ethiopia, but he lost, and the Italians took over control of Ethiopia. So he was exiled to England in 1936, but he returned to Ethiopia in 1941, and it's said that he was assassinated in 1975, though others say he died of natural causes. To this day, it's still unknown. As you can see, that's me with the statue. Now, the statue itself was put up in 1937, and the artist is a lady called Hilda Seligman. Here's Hilda here with Haile Selassie and her family. And Hilda and her husband Richard were very much active campaigners against the British invasion. They were against the British support of the Italian invasion of Ethiopia. And originally, the statue stood in the grounds of a place called Lincoln House in Wimbledon, but that building was demolished in 1957. So they moved it, and they moved it to a place called Old Tennis Court Garden, which is very difficult to find. And they decided to restore the bust before they put it back in place. And it was restored formally, it was restored and formally unveiled by the Mayor of Merton on the 22nd of October 2005. The ceremony was attended by a mix of Rastafarians, who we got here, members of the Seligman family, and relatives of the late Emperor himself, which was the Emperor's great-great-granddaughter and his great-great-grandson. The statue, as I said, did stand in Old Tennis Court Garden in Wimbledon. However, recently it was destroyed, not because of all the Black Lives Matter stuff, but because there was a singer in Ethiopia who was murdered, and the people who supported that singer, those of them who lived in England, went to the statue and threw it to the ground and just completely smashed it. Whether or not they'll be able to fix it, I doubt it, because I've seen the pictures and it's in bits. If they do put it back together, I'll be very surprised, unless, of course, they've got a copy. Now, when in 1924, Haile Selassie toured Europe and the Middle East, and among his entourage, he included a pride of lions, which he distributed as gifts to the President and Prime Minister of France, as well as to the Zoological Gardens of Paris and to King George V of England. And in return for the 2 lions that he gave to the United Kingdom, they gave him back a crown that had been stolen from Ethiopia in 1868. So basically, he gives them a gift and they give him back his own items. That's not how it works with gifts, as far as I'm aware. Although he could speak fluent French, he gave his speech to the Geneva Convention in Amharic, which is his native language, and that really taxed their interpreters because they had to quickly go and find an interpreter who spoke the language, which was difficult because they thought he was going to give the speech in French, so they didn't actually have one available. In his lifetime, he held over 100 honors and titles, and he got those from nearly every country in the world. So as well as the things that people talk about with Haile Selassie, that's just one of the few things that people know about him. But as you can see here, you've got the Master Fair, and this is him with the posh people of England being introduced. And as I said, this is his family. And this is the lady who did the statue, Hilda Seligman, with her family and grandson. So again, I would have said once upon a time to go and see that particular statue, but no, it's gone. I don't know what's going to happen, whether they're going to restore it or not, or if they have a copy of it. Let's hope they have a copy of it. Now, this is a very, very well-known gentleman. Whenever I say about Black statues, the first person people mention is Nelson Mandela. So I thought I have to include him. He's got 2 statues. Very few people have 2 statues, but he's got 2 statues. He's got one in Parliament Square, and he's got one at the Royal Festival Hall. Now, just a quickie, he was born in 1918. He died in 2013. He's a very famous activist, and he led the ANC, and he became the first Black Prime Minister in South Africa. He became a freedom fighter in 1942 by joining the ANC, and he married his first wife, Evelyn, in 1944, but they were divorced in 1958. He then married Winnie Mandela in June 1958. He was sentenced to life imprisonment in June 1964. When he was released from prison in 1990, he became the first Black Prime Minister of South Africa in 1994. He married his third wife in 1998. Her name was Graça Michel, and he died on the 5th of December 2013. So that's kind of like a big roundup of his life, because I'm sure most people know about Nelson Mandela. And I'm going to just put in the sculptor, and once again, we have Ian Walters. Now, unfortunately, Walters died in 2006 of cancer, aged 76, but he managed to finish, well, he did both busts, but he managed to finish the one on the left in Parliament Square before he passed away. Now, the one on the left, it was unveiled on the 29th of August 2007. It was unveiled by the then Prime Minister Gordon Brown, and Mandela and his wife were present at the time. The statue is made of bronze, and it's 9 feet or 2.7 meters high. It costs £400,000, which for a statue is very cheap, because statues cost an awful lot of money. A lot of people ask me, why does he have his arms outwards? It's to symbolize an embracing and united South Africa, and he welcomes the rest of the world. He was that kind of guy. And when I take people around on the tours, whenever we get to Nelson Mandela, it's always the hardest one to get to, because the kids are climbing all over it. People are having their pictures taken with it because it's so popular. It's just very popular because his plinth is not as very high as the others, which is great because it means you can interact with the statue. Now, the statue on the right-hand side, this one here, which is a bust statue, it's situated outside the Royal Festival Hall. You have to go up the stairs, and it's just outside the Festival Hall. Again, created by Ian Walters. However, it was the first Nelson Mandela statue that was created, and it was there since 1985, and it was unveiled by Oliver Tambo. However, the original was made from fiberglass, and fiberglass, as much as it's strong, it's not that strong. So what happened? The vandals, should we say, hooligans is another word, got to hear about it, and they basically mashed the thing down. They took it to pieces, they ripped it up, they did all kinds of things, and so they had to make another one. But when they realized that this was going to continuously happen, they eventually made one from bronze, and they set it on a much higher plinth. And it was originally commissioned by Ken Livingstone when he was in the GLA, Greater London, actually GLC, Greater London Council. And it was it infuriated a lot of conservative followers and believers because they saw Mandela as a terrorist, but it's remained. And just down the road from Parliament Square, there is South Africa House, and it was there that many people went to sign a book of condolences when Nelson Mandela passed away. Now, whilst I was doing research for Nelson Mandela, I came across this statue, bust statue. I was very surprised because I didn't know that Oliver Tambo had a bust statue. And once again, it was carved by Ian Walters. Now, Tambo came to live in England in 1959 when he was banned for belonging to the African National Congress, the ANC. He bought a property in Muswell Hill, North London, and lived there until 1990 when he returned to South Africa. Now, this bust statue is in Albert Road Recreation Ground, and also there's a plaque on his house, which is on the corner of Windermere Road and Alexandra Park Road, both of which are in Muswell Hill in Haringey, and Tambo lived there for 30 years with his wife and family. His wife worked for the NHS as a nurse, and he died in 1993 from complications after a stroke. Whilst living there, the family called it Nomtandazo, which means caring together in the Tsonga language, and I do apologize for my pronunciations if they're not correct. The house is now owned by the South African government. We don't know what they're going to do with it, but people, when you go there, you'll find there's quite a few people there taking pictures, etc. Now, the statue itself was put up in 2007. As I said, the sculptor is Ian Walters, who did the Mandela and the Bronze Woman. It was unveiled by Jack Straw, and it's made of bronze. Now, what's interesting is I found myself working for the company who actually put the statue up. They put it up, and the company had a replica in their office, and I didn't know who it was because the replica is in white. And I asked them who it was, and they were surprised that I didn't know. And that's when they told me who it was. But when you see the replica in white, it looks completely different. Now, in November 2019, Haringey Council unveiled another statue of him in the same park as where the bust statue is. The two statues are very close to each other, so I haven't been to see the full statue yet, but I intend to. But definitely go and see if you can find them both. Amazing man. Look him up, check him out, his story, just as interesting as Nelson Mandela. So now, for those of you who live on the other side of London, Brixton Rail Station. Now, Brixton Rail Station has three statues of these three people. There's one, these two are the same person, 2, and 3. And these people are waiting for trains that they will never get on. These pieces are called Platforms Piece and are by Kevin Atherton. This is Kevin here. They were installed in 1986. Now, they're real people cast in stone. The people they represent used to regularly use the station, and one even worked there. There's a black male, a white female, and a black female. They use local residents, Peter Lloyd, Joy Batik, and Karen Heisterman as models. And there you have Joy next to her model. They're a joint venture between British Rail and Lambeth Council, and they were unveiled by Sir Hugh Casson, who was a very big man in his time, as part of a £1 million renovation. Unfortunately, one of the statues, this one here, now stands on a disused platform, so it's very difficult to see. And also, I read recently they're actually removing this statue simply because of where it's standing. The platform is disintegrating, and because it's not used, they may move the statue to another part of the station, but she has to be fixed up because she's crumbling. So in November 2016, these three statues were given listed status by Historic England, which is very, very unusual for any statues to get listed status. That's usually held for houses. and buildings and things, and these were given listed status. And it's said that these are the first public sculptural representations of Black British people in the UK. Now, I don't know if that's true, because I found a lot of statues, but to be specifically Black British, that may be where the difference is with these. I'm still investigating, but I will know soon. So now we move on to these, what are known as the Commonwealth Gates. These Commonwealth Gates are a memorial that was put up in memory of the 5 million volunteers who took part in the First and Second World Wars from various parts of the Commonwealth. And if you look at one of them, or both of them, in fact, you've got Nepal, Africa, and Caribbean, and each one has different markings, different countries. They're at the upper end of Constitution Hill, which is near to Hyde Park. So you've got the Hyde Park roundabout, which is just there. And as the cars come around the corner, there is the memorial. One of Africa's leading writers, Ben Okri, OBE, who is a poet, here he is there, and a Booker Prize winning author, was asked to provide the inscriptions on the memorial, and he chose to use the words, "Our future is greater than our past," which is the final line of one of his poems. On the 9th of March 2015, there was a Memorial Gates commemoration ceremony, which was attended by people from the various embassies, high commissions and associations and organizations, people representing the diverse communities who took part in the war. There isn't really much to tell you. You need to go and look at it. You've got this part of the building here, which is like a little house thing, and inside in the ceiling they've got written lots of names of different countries and people who took part in the war who were significant. And then they have these little urns on top, which sometimes are lit with fire, and then they put out. But yeah, this is just a memorial that most people walk past, don't even know what it is. And I think that includes us as well, because most people don't know about it. Now we talk about Samuel Coleridge Taylor. Some of you have never heard of him. Some people mix him up with Taylor Coleridge, the poet, which is Samuel Taylor Coleridge, but this is Samuel Coleridge Taylor. Very confusing, but listen up. Now, he was born on the 15th of August, 1875, and he died on the 1st of September, 1912. He was born in Holborn to an English woman called Alice Martin and a man called Dr. Daniel Taylor from Sierra Leone, of mixed European and African descent. His relationship with Alice, though, broke down before she could tell him about the child, and he returned to Sierra Leone in 1875 and never knew that he had a son in London. In the late 1890s, he was appointed as a coroner for the British Empire in the Gambia, still not knowing that he had a son in England. Now, Alice, his mother, decided to name him Samuel Coleridge Taylor, and she named him after the poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Samuel Taylor Coleridge is the poet who wrote Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Now, Samuel was brought up in Croydon by his mother and grandfather. His uncle was a professional musician, and Samuel studied the violin and piano at the Royal College of Music and studied music composition. He actually was a teacher, and he was appointed as a professor at the Crystal Palace School of Music. He also conducted the orchestra at the Croydon Conservatoire, and the Croydon Conservatoire is still there today. And I'm sure if we go there, you'll find there's some information about him. In 1899, Coleridge Taylor married Jessie Walmsley, whom he had met at the Royal College of Music. Now, she was white, and her parents objected to the marriage because Taylor was black. The couple had a son named Hiawatha and a daughter called Gwendolyn. Now, here you've got a picture of Gwendolyn, and this is Samuel Coleridge Taylor. And what I like about Gwendolyn is that she decided she didn't like the name Gwendolyn. She wanted to change her name So she changed her name to Avril and became a conductor-composer in her own right. Now, his most famous composition was Hiawatha's Wedding Feast, which was written between 1898 and 1900, and I'm going to play just a small piece for you. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. It was just a short, so you could hear, what it sounded like. Now, unfortunately, he sold the rights to this music outright for 15 guineas, about £60 in today's money. So he didn't really benefit from writing such a fantastic piece of music. However, due to the popularity of the composition, it enabled him to travel to America and various other places where he met African Americans and other people who encouraged him to learn about his background. And at one point, he considered going to live in America. And however, he didn't. He lived in Selhurst. So he lived at number 30 Dagnall Park, Selhurst, which has a blue plaque to him outside his house. Now, Coleridge Taylor was only 37 when he died in 1912 of pneumonia. He collapsed at West Croydon Station, and he died a few days later. He was buried in Bandon Hill Cemetery in Wallington in Surrey. Now, let's look at the statue. The statue itself is what's known as a portrait bench statue. Portrait bench statues are made of something called corten steel, where they literally cut out of steel. So you could actually put your hands through the characters' heads, bits, waistcoat, etc. And as you can see, there are 3 statues there. One is Ronnie Corbett here. One is Dame Peggy Ashcroft. And this one is Samuel Coleridge Taylor. Now, what's interesting about these statues, they're known as portrait bench statues because there's usually 3 of them, and there's usually a bench, so that they're actually aimed at cyclists. People who cycle, when they get tired, they can sit down at the bench and they can talk to these people if they want, or they're surrounded by people. Now, the way they get these statues is they will ask the community, who do you think best represents this area? And people can actually choose who they think best represents the area. So in this particular instance, people felt that Ronnie Corbett, who came from that area, and Dame Peggy Ashcroft, who also came from that area, as well as Samuel Coleridge Taylor, who also came from the area, all represented Croydon. So they were picked and they were set up. And this is in Charles Street, this particular statue. Now, the people who set up these statues, the company is called Sustrans. It's a charity, and they create these types of statues all over the UK on cycle routes, so the public can interact with the statues. This particular one was unveiled in 2013, as I said. Now, one more thing to tell you about Samuel Coleridge Taylor before I forget, or a couple more things. He was the youngest delegate at the 1900 First Pan-African Conference held in London. Excuse me. He was the Simon Cowell of his day because he was so successful. He was asked to judge other people's music and upcoming people. So again, a la Simon Cowell. Now, as I said, there are many other types of portrait benches that set out all over England, but I found a few for you. Excuse me. Jazzy B has a portrait bench statue in Finsbury Park. Ledley King, who's the ex-Tottenham Hotspur footballer, has a portrait bench statue in Mile End Park. Mary Seacole has a cutout statue, the one I showed you earlier when we were talking about Mary Seacole. That's down by Paddington Station. Walter Tull, who was the first Black Army captain, as far as we're aware, and Tottenham footballer, has a cutout statue at Downhills Park in Tottenham. And right next to him is Nicola Adams, the Olympic boxer, who also has a statue at Downshill Park in Tottenham. Now, moving on. We have this memorial. I do like this statue. I think she's absolutely beautiful. This memorial is around the back of the Albert Hall. There are 4 figures around the base of the main statue, which is of Albert, the Queen's consort. So there's Albert up here, and these are the 4 statues. You can see 2 here. Now, these statues represent Europe, America, Asia, and Africa. And these figures match the 4 groups on the Albert Memorial across the road from the Albert Hall. If you've ever been to the Albert Hall, you'll know directly opposite is the Albert Memorial. This one, I love her dreadlocks. I love her face. She's got pouty lips. She's really gorgeous. And this is how I look when no one's looking, you know, lovely and beautiful. The statue was actually made by a man called Joseph Durham. It was unveiled in 1851 for the Great Exhibition of Hyde Park. It's made of bronze. And the thing about the Great Exhibition of Hyde Park is that a lot of people went to it. Not many people have heard of it, but a lot of people went to it. They've heard of it in a different way, though, because, of course, it was the Great Exhibition. And that's what it was known as. Now, 6 million people attended the Great Exhibition of 1851. It went on for 6 months, from May to October 1851, and it was opened by Queen Victoria. It took over £522,000 at the time, which is roughly £30 million today, and 13,000 people exhibited there. Now, the people that exhibited there included countries as well as people, but countries such as Antigua, Bahamas, Barbados, Grenada, Jamaica, Montserrat, St. Kitts, St. Vincent, Trinidad, West Africa, Egypt. So you could see that we were very much involved in this great exhibition. And I'd love to have known what kind of things they were showing. I'm assuming it would have been the produce, the goods that they made. And it was at this festival that Britain first showed the Koh-i-Noor diamond, the biggest diamond in the world at the time. The current biggest diamond in the world is called the Star of Africa, and it lives in one of the Queen's crowns. So if you want to see it, you have to go to the Tower of London. So there she is. And as I say, it's behind the Royal Albert Hall. The nearest tube is High Street, Ken. I've always got that information on there, so you can check it out. Now we come to almost our last statue, and this is called First Child, and it's a piece by Jamaican-born artist Raymond Watson. It's a memorial to the 116 children who were murdered by the South African police in Soweto in 1976. Now, within a week of it being unveiled, it was reported that it had been wrecked by vandals. However, luckily, because of the material it's made from, it's very tough and it remains on public view. The sculptor is a guy called Raymond Watson, as I said, who was born in 1945 in Jamaica. This statue was unveiled in June 1998, and it's in Max Roach Park. It's not actually in the park, it's on the corner of Brixton Road and St John's Crescent. So when you come out of Brixton Station, turn right and just keep walking till you see the statue. Now, Raymond, I have a short video, but this is him here, and this is the dedication on the statue, and this is a short video of him at work.
martial art, than it was.
You're not there.
Yeah, than it was. And I don't know. I disturb people.
Your images.
My work disturbs people, evidently. And so I've run into so much kind of negative kind of thing. This is really deep and heavy, but I mean, the user this is the user but people out there not going to understand that. So which people out there not going to understand that? What you're trying to tell me is the pure assholes out there. I mean, all of these people out there are just idiots and can't understand. Well, maybe you should fill it in. I say, what? I said, no. And so this went on for a couple of days. And I said, I'm not filling it in. I'm not changing the whole situation. I've made the statement. And if you don't like the statement, well, that's it. What living in London really taught me, though, that my work is very heavily tied to Jamaica.
Oh, yes.
No matter where I go, how far away it is, how ridiculous it gets.
That's Raymond being Raymond. Okay, so now let's move on to a very well-known person within Britain, I suppose. This man is known as Bernie Grant, and Bernie Grant was born on the 17th of February 1990. I've written 1994 here. I don't think it was 1994. He died on the 8th of April 2000. He was a Labour Party politician who was the Member of Parliament for Tottenham from 1987 to year 2000. Now, Bernie Grant was born in Georgetown, Guyana. He came to England in 1963 and went to Tottenham Technical College. He went on to take a degree course in mining engineering in Edinburgh, and he was a trade union official. Now, he moved into politics and became a Labour councillor in Haringey in 1978, and he became the leader of Haringey Council in 1985. Now, once in control of the borough's finances, he took control of the rebuilding of Alexandra Palace, which had been partially destroyed by fire. And in 1985, the Broadwater Farm riots or uprisings, depending on which way you want to say it, took place. After various misquoted statements, Bernie got the nickname Balmy Bernie by the press. And in the 1987 election, he became MP for Tottenham, along with the only other black MPs of the time, Diane Abbott and Paul Boateng. Bernie made an attempt to become deputy leader of the Labour Party, but was unsuccessful. And in 1989, he established and chaired the Parliamentary Black Caucus, which was committed to advancing the opportunities of the UK's ethnic minority communities. He was married 3 times and lived in Muswell Hill. He died of a heart attack on 8th of April 2000, aged only 56. Now, his funeral procession, which passed through Tottenham, brought out an estimated 3,000 people to salute him. There were dancers, singers, a Highland piper, and African drums. Also present were the then Home Secretary Jack Straw, Culture Secretary Claire Short, as well as Paul Boateng and Keith Vaz, Britain's most senior black ministers at the time. Now, the statue information is difficult because it took me quite a long time to find out who made this statue. The lady's name is Christy Nicholas. She's the sculptor here on this side here. This is her. She now lives in Spain. But she started out as an osteopath and she became a sculptor. As I say, it was unveiled in 2007 and it's made of bronze. And this is the sculptor here. This is Bernie in Parliament in his African dress. And this is Bernie probably just about to argue with somebody like he normally did. Now, his widow, Sharon Grant, was on the shortlist to succeed him as Labour candidate for Tottenham, but was beaten by David Lammy in June 2000. And in September 2007, the Bernie Grant Art Centre was opened in his name. In October 2012, a blue plaque was unveiled at Tottenham Old Town Hall in tribute to Bernie, which is down here. And the Bernie Grant collection is held by the Bishopsgate Institute, which is based just by Liverpool Street Station. So if you want to go and find out any more about Bernie Grant, you can go down there and they hold a lot of information about him. So we move on to our next statue, monument, memorial. People call it different things. Now, this structure is called the Guilt of Cain, and it commemorates the abolition of the transatlantic slave trade in 1807, which began the process of the emancipation of slaves throughout the British Empire. It's situated in Fen Court, which is in the City of London, and is close to where Wilberforce gained the inspiration to debate the end to the slave trade. And this area has a strong historical connection with the abolitionist movement of the 18th and 19th century. Most people are not aware of that the city has quite a strong connection with the abolitionist movement as well as the slave trade. Now, the Reverend John Newton, who wrote Amazing Grace, he was also a slave trader, but he turned to abolitionists, and he was rector of St. Mary Woolnough, a church, from 1780 to 1807. And this statue is in the former churchyard of St. Mary Woolnough, which was used to stand here. So these buildings at the back here used to be a church, and this used to be the churchyard. Now, this project was initiated by Black British Heritage and the parish of St. Mary Woolnough, and was commissioned by the City of London Corporation in partnership with the British Land Company. So quite a few people got together to make this happen. Now, the basis of the statue is that this represents either a priest's pulpit or, if you look at it another way, a slave auctioneer's podium. Now, I'm standing here. In fact, I'm standing here. Yeah, that's just a close-up. So this is the pulpit here. The person in the pulpit is speaking to a crowd of people here. These sugar canes are a crowd. And they could represent either a priest or a slave trader. The columns represent stems of sugarcane and are positioned to suggest a crowd of people about to be sold or a congregation gathered to listen to a speaker. So you see how they've used it in two different ways. On the pulpit and each sugarcane, there is a line from a poem, which when put together makes up a whole poem. And you can just see little black marks on each of the sugarcanes, and you've got part of the poem on there. The poem uses the coded language of the City Stock Exchange intermingled with references used throughout the slave trade. So something like the word guilt, if you notice how guilt is spelt, when you spell guilt like that, you're talking about money. But if you spell guilt with a U, you're talking about feelings, people, the way people feel. Now, the actual statue, the sculptor is this man here called Michael Visocci, and it was unveiled on the 4th of September 2008 by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who's here. The statue is, or the memorial, is made from granite, and the words of the poem are by this man here, Lem Sise. Now, Lem Sise is a poet, author, and broadcaster. He was brought up in a children's home and has many achievements to his name, including this piece. He was the official poet for the 2012 Olympic Games, and he was awarded an MBE for services to literature in 2010. He is currently the Chancellor of Manchester University and has been since 2015. And recently he was featured on the BBC programme Imagine, where he was interviewed by Alan Yentob, and that was only a few weeks ago. So if you missed it, you can watch it on iPlayer. But again, this is another hidden statue that many people, when I take the tours around to this, most people just walk past it. And even the people on the tour don't realize that this is where we're going to be stopping to talk about this. They walk past it too, because it's not obvious what it is. But when you go there, you will see the full poem, which is amazing and very heart-rending. So I recommend you go there. Now we talk about a very well-known person, which is Mr. Marcus Garvey. Or should I say the Honourable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. He was born on the 17th of August, 1887, and he died on the 10th of June, 1940. He was a political leader, as well as a publisher, an activist, a journalist, and an entrepreneur who believed in Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism. Basically, he promoted the return of Africans back to Africa. He founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association, which became known as UNIA, and the African Communities League, which became known as the ACL. He lived in Hammersmith in London from 1912 to 1914, where he attended Birkbeck College to study law and philosophy. As a director of the UNIA and the ACL, he set up various businesses to help the Black community, including publishing a weekly newspaper called Negro World and having a shipping line which owned 4 ships. Now, UNIA had over 2 million members, and unusually, what I found quite interesting was that both of his wives were called Amy. It's such an unusual name, and to have 2 wives called Amy, I just find that interesting. And both were influential and supportive of him in his aims. He died in London in 1940, aged 52, after he had read an article that said he had died. Now, it was shocking enough to read an article that said you've died when you haven't, but he said it said that he was totally shocked about the negativity of the article. Yes?
I'm running out of time.
Okay, this is the last one. This is the last one.
Okay.
I'll finish this in the next couple of minutes. He was totally shocked about the negativity of the article, and this led to his suffering a stroke, which led to his death. Because of the war, he was interred in Kensal Green Cemetery, but was repatriated to Jamaica afterwards, and he was declared Jamaica's first national hero in 1964. And you can see him at Willesden Green Library and Marcus Garvey Library, one in Tottenham, one in Willesden Green. I'm going to leave it there because we're running short of time. So if you'd like to contact me, here's my contact info. I'm on all social media, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, Terry.
You're very welcome, and a very good display and very informative. And hopefully one day we can do it outdoors once again. With our people around us, following us to every spot that you've been speaking about. Okay. So it was great. Brother Rich, are you there? Okay. All right. So family, I hope you enjoyed it.
Much appreciated, Avril. Much appreciated for coming on. Big up. Sorry that time is pushing at you.
No, I know it happens. It happens. Okay. See you guys later. No time for questions today.
Today, no, we've got Paul Obenga on. Okay. He's been humbly waiting.
Paul Obina even.
Yeah.
No, can you hear me?
Yes.
Please let sister take some questions till, give it 10 minutes questions.
No
Please
problem.
let her do that.
You heard it, Avril.
Who wants to ask a question?
I don't know. Is there anyone want to ask any questions? Does anyone in the family house want to ask any questions? What you've learned today? They're just applauding you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Loads of applause.
Could I, Sister Avril?
Yes.
Is there about Marcus Garvey? You didn't curtail. You didn't cut off what you were going to say about him.
Well, I had to because I was told I run out of time.
No, please. If there's no question, please conclude it. We can't cut across that, so please conclude it.
Okay, let me just share my screen again. Then hold on. I think I was so close to the end anyway. Where are we? Let's go to these here, and then go back. Oh no, that's where was I? What I was going to say about Marcus Garvey, just to finish off, was that the statue itself, no one knows who the sculptor is, and nobody seems to know when it was unveiled. I've tried to find out who the sculptor was. Either people are denying that they made it, because a lot of people say it's really horrible, they don't like it. And I've tried to find out who actually made the statue. I've got no unveil date, unfortunately. I know it's made of bronze. This is his death mask here on the right-hand side, which was taken supposedly after he died. Now, there are many commemoratives to Marcus Garvey in this country. There's, Marcus Garvey Way in Brixton, Marcus Garvey Library, as we know, blue plaque for him in Hammersmith. There's a Marcus Garvey Centre in Nottingham. He's mentioned in the Bob Marley song So Much Things to Say, and the Bob Marley song So Much Things to Say was on the Exodus album, which was then voted the best album of the 20th century, which is amazing. And there's a memorial to him in Hammersmith. So he's got a lot of attributes. No, what's the word? Not attributes. He's got a lot of commemorations to him. And then I did do some of these words here where effectively these are the things that he said. And I think the most famous one is a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin and culture is like a tree without roots. But my favorite is remove the kinks from your mind, not from your hair. So it was hard to put too much into this because I was rushing through it, but I try not to talk about too much what other people have said about them. I like to find out interesting other things and tell people things that they may not know. Paul, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I had the honor back in 1987. I was one of the two artists with a brother called Shaka Dedi. We were the ones who were kind of commissioned with putting together some of the graphics for the Marcus Garvey Centenary Committee.
Brilliant.
And I'm just wondering whether something from one of the elders from there, like Brother Pepperkai, or I'm trying to remember the head of the Osera Set Society was also involved in that committee. So I was wondering whether they'd know who did that bust.
Yeah.
Because I remember there was
Sorry, I said I asked the libraries and they didn't know.
Yeah, it might be. There was a sister who did a portrait of Garvey, and she didn't get the depth of the image, and so he looked a bit like a bullfrog. It was just like a mass, and then so she was asked to sharpen it up, and then she made it lighter skinned, straighter features, thinner lips, etc. To which people were, nah, that's not that. We're not on that, and so we went back to using the standard graphic that we see of him on many images.
Yeah, and I'm aware that Raymond, was it Raymond? No, not Raymond. Farrakhan has made a statue of him, a bust statue. That's not seen very often, and I actually spoke to Farrakhan about it. I don't think he released it at the time when I was talking to him, but it's hard to get a decent statue of Marcus Garvey, a good one. There are lots of statues, but to get a really good one, it's very difficult.
I think it's fantastic that you've actually put this forward. Let's take the kink out of your hair rather than your mind. It's simply because you remember the old argument that was between W.E.B. Du Bois and Garvey. So the talented 10th versus the mass population, the movement, mass movement. And Du Bois, I remember there was hearing it, he called up Garvey some serious negative names.
They didn't get on.
And they retorted, but Du Bois is buried. Eventually, he conceded the point to Garvey. And he's actually buried in cantonments in Ghana. The Du Bois Center there, his grave is there. So he retracted and regretted the interactions, but it was a sign of the time of the colorism, which seems to be back again in full force. So people seem to have the kind of the mentality, the thought process is being stimulated on the white supremacist way, but many people don't understand that they're playing the white supremacist game by falling into colorism. And Garvey, there's a sister called Dr. Chantella Sherman. I'd love to see you two interact because she talks about eugenics.
Okay. Yeah.
And she says that both Du Bois and Garvey were eugenicists in their own way.
Isn't that interesting? I didn't. on. I know, I'm aware that they didn't get on.
Yeah.
Someone's asking the questions. Am I aware if anyone's working on another Selassie statue? I'm not, as I said, because that only happened. I don't know if everyone's aware of that business with the Haile Selassie statue. It got broken, smashed.
Yeah.
Anybody in this group even? Okay. Basically, as I say, it was taken down, smashed to pieces by a group of people from I think they're called the Amoro people, and they were upset because one of their singers was murdered in Ethiopia, and they felt that their way to get back at Ethiopia was to take down that statue. Whether or not they'll be putting it back together, because I saw the picture of it, it's smashed to pieces, so it'll be very difficult to put it back together. But I think hopefully they may have a copy.
Okay.
Yeah. Someone's asked how many black sculptors have been commissioned. There aren't many black sculptors. The only one I could think of when I was doing the presentation in particular was Yinka Shonibari. However, I am working on a book which hopefully will be out sometime next year, where we will have a full list of all the black statues and London landmarks.
I love the one in Stockwell. Did you show her?
Oh, she's gorgeous. The bronze woman.
Yeah, lifting the child.
Wow.
I used to work in Stockwell. I still have connections there. So every time, in actual fact, the statue's moved several feet. I think about 3 occasions they've moved it when they've done improvements.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love that one. Love it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that I went past it for many, many years and just kept seeing it in the corner of my eyes and didn't know what it was until one day I just thought, let me go and investigate this. And I went to see it and I was like, wow, this is amazing, you know. So yeah, brilliant statue. And I recommend everyone go and look at it.
I was at a meeting where I swear the sculptor gave forward some of the ideas that they were having for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This is back very early 2000s. And then when I saw it, but it puts me in mind of Kunta Kinte holding. Oh, sorry, Kunta Kinte's father holding him up. Yeah. But the fact it's the mother makes me, for my own personal reasons, I really do like that.
Yeah, brilliant statue. This is only a short, small amount of statues. I've got a lot of statues that I can talk about, and I do have a 2-hour presentation where I do basically name them all. But as time goes on, people are always sending me statues that I've never heard of. But my main thing with statues is they have to be where people could see them for free. I don't want private statues where people have got it locked away somewhere, because if people have to go and pay for it, then it doesn't make sense. We need to be able to go and see these things that are, for ourselves for free. So that's why I do the statues, and all my statues are, always free to see.
The one that you showed in by the Albert Hall?
Yes.
Again, a favorite, because I used to live in Sydenham, as in Sydenham Hill Crystal Palace. So I've got a link to that.
Yeah.
But do you know have you seen the friezes on the front of the Foreign Office?
Yes, I have. Yes, the lady.
So we always use. It's a similar format.
Yeah. Well, I work with the MOD.
Okay.
And part of the statues that I do with them is I include that one, and they're always shocked because they never know that that's right there. It's right there. I've never even noticed it before.
I only saw it because I did some careless driving and hit my rear tire on I think it might have been no, it wasn't the cenotaph. It was further back up. And my tire burst, and I was changing my tire. And I looked up and saw them there. This was maybe about 30 years ago. Yeah. And so I became aware. Then I came back years later. I came back with my camera and tripod. Got some images.
Well,
Because it's like we say that all around London, if you walk with an like the information you're giving people is so vital to the psychology of it. Because if you think about it, if you know of these things, you're walking around being nurtured all the time. You've been told about the power relationship between Europe, Africa, Europe and Asia, etc. But if you don't know and you're not informed, it means that you just be walking past a wall or whatever, or walking past a certain figure. Don't understand its significance.
Yeah. Well, one of the statues, it's really interesting because I talk about the Buxton Memorial, which is another memorial that I talk about in the 2-hour version. But I saw a picture on the internet and I couldn't understand what this picture had to do with the memorial, because I kept thinking, why are they showing a phone box? And it's only when I went down there and I stood in exactly the same place as where you could, where the picture was taken, that I realized there's actually a memorial to the Buxton Memorial in Parliament Square that you will never see, because it's so hidden.
Right.
And I just couldn't figure out why the person had taken this picture. And when I went down there and I stood and I saw it, and I went, oh my God, look at that. And it tells you that the Buxton Memorial had been based in Parliament Square and that they'd moved it and it was now somewhere else. And it tells you it's about the emancipation of slavery, blah, 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 all these things. And it's right there under our noses and we just don't see it.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was a bit of a surprise, that one, because I couldn't figure out why a person was taking a picture of a phone box. I mean, I know tourists do. This wasn't about a phone box. It was a site about Buxton Memorial, but they didn't actually explain what that picture was.
What are your opinions about the pulling down of the Colston statue, etc.?
As I said, I'd never even heard of Colston. So when I saw it, I thought I just laughed at first. I was like, who is this guy and why are they setting a statue? Then then you hear all the news, etc. But the thing that got me was that it wasn't really black people that did that. When you look at the people pulling it down, most of it was white people pulling it down. I'm not really a great one for pulling down statues. I understand if you have a debate and it's decided, but I'm a person, I think you need to put a little plaque next to it to say, this is what he did here, but this is also what he did. Because I feel that if we start taking down statues, someone like me who spends a lot of time looking at statues, it's part of my business that I tell people about statues. I want to know about statues. Why is that statue there? If it's not there, I'm not going to be asking the question.
Okay.
So I mean, if it's disappeared and I know nothing about it, I'm not going to be able to say, well, this statue was here, because if I didn't know it was there in the first place.
I think it's a real insight into the culture, because it gives you the background information about what that person did.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's what I think. We ought to have almost like 2 plaques as such. One saying what he supposedly did, which was supposedly good, but the other saying, but he also did
the balance.
Yeah.
So the point of view where it's coming from. No, I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
There are some statues, though, which are so high up. I mean, really high up. There's some plaques that are high up. You can't read them. I don't see the point of putting them that high up if people can't read them. There's a statue that I talk about, and it's on the side of the building. It is so high up, you can barely work it out. And again, I don't understand why people put statues in those places, because why?
Okay.
Yeah. So, But Paul, I think I've taken up all your time.
No, it's not. It's our time. It's our time. I can adopt and whatever. What you're saying is so important because it's in the now. It's a lot of my thing is quite abstract and whatever. So
I was there when you gave a class with Michael Lou. I can't remember his last name. You talked about the timeline, and we have actually met before. So
Michael Manning.
That's
Michael
it.
Manning. That's
yeah. Yeah, I actually attended all the classes, and I thought your talk was just fantastic.
Oh, thank
This
you.
is me being sycophantic now, but basically, yeah, it was really interesting because I think I bought the timeline when you first put it out years ago.
Okay.
Then we
Okay.
moved house, and I've never seen it since. So
Okay.
I'm gonna have to get another one.
All right. All right. Yes, we can. Well, talk to Michael. He's got them for sale.
Yes,
Yeah.
I will.
Talk to him.
This has been a very insightful conversation listening to the two of you. So, sister, don't feel like you're taking up time. I think I feel the same as the brother, that what you're doing and hearing you bounce off of Paul, that's the beautiful thing, because even though he may be dealing with more ancient history, if you want to say it like that, again, it's relevant. And the adage of art imitating life, and going back to the conversation about statues being taken down, as you said, it's important to have that comparison there for future generations, because already we're, the whole point of this weekender is to inspire a love for our history, which is already kind of lacking. So it's important to have those comparisons. So again, we are in no uncertain terms knowing where we are and what country we're in, because I think it's important to not have a false narrative of the UK, and to understand who the racist people are, as well as who the black presence is and the black contributions. Because the truth of it is, black history is everybody's history. That's the problem.
That's
the ongoing beef.
Yeah.
But yeah, much appreciated for that. Paul, when you're ready, you can begin your presentation, brother.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sister Avril.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
One of these, it'll all be over. It'll all be over, and we won't have to cry.